In today's show, the Trailblazers are holding their first draft workouts ahead of the 2025 NBA draft. The season is upon us. Welcome to Locked On Blazers. Let's get into it.
You are Locked On Trailblazers, your daily Portland Trailblazers podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
What's up, world? It's your past first point guard and Trailblazers reporter Mike Richmond. You're listening to another episode of Locked On Blazers, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, available wherever you get podcasts and also on YouTube. Thanks for making this show your first listen. Coming at you each and every weekday, Monday through Friday, so make it a part of your daily routine. Make it your first listen. Tell your friends to do the same. As Locked On Blazers, your team every day. In today's program, we're talking NBA draft workouts. The Blazers this week on Tuesday and Thursday hosted the first of their publicly disclosed NBA draft workouts with a handful of second-round hopefuls, likely undrafted free agents, and some dudes who are going to end up going back to college and trying it all again next year. We'll talk about who was in the building, some names you need to know from a quite frankly, lower level draft workout. We'll talk about why the challenges of just like getting dudes in the gym might be real for the Blazers, depending on what happens in the draft lottery on Monday. Plus, I want to talk about something that's kind of been floating around in my Blazers spaces amongst my friends and maybe some of you listeners who have emailed me. It's this concern about redundancy, about overlapping, and about crowded rosters that I think the Blazers are going to have to face one way or another, and the draft will be one of the reasons in which they face it. We'll talk about all of that in today's program. Let's start with the workouts. The Blazers have held two this week, one on May 6th, another on May 8th. That's Tuesday and Thursday. Like I mentioned, this is not, we're pre-lottery. The Blazers don't know where they're selecting yet. The lottery is on Monday at about 4 Pacific time. So Monday evening, we will know exactly where the Blazers pick, and you will hear all about it here on this particular program. I promise you. But in addition, this is just so early in the process. Not only do the Blazers not know where they're going to pick, the Blazers' odds aren't particularly good, and it's just it's super early. I don't think many teams are publicly working out players. I think for perspective, as a fan, you should be thankful that the Blazers are kind of telling you this stuff. Pretty good chance none of the dudes that worked out for them this week ever play for the team, but if you're curious and want to see the way the sausage is made, the Blazers are giving you a little look at the ingredients, a little look at the sausage. So who was there? Well, let's run through it. Tuesday's workout included Ruben Chinyelu from Florida, Devin Pryor from Texas, Ben Henshaw, who's playing professionally with the Perth Wildcats in Australia, Dink Pate, who was a G League Ignite guy, the youngest North American professional basketball player at 17 with G League Ignite, and then stayed in the G League once the Ignite collapsed and has been playing for the Mexico City Capitans. John Blackwell from Wisconsin, Lachlan Olbrich from the Illawarra Hawks in Australia. That's your group on Tuesday. And then Thursday's group, get excited. Mackenzie Ibako from Indiana, Tay Davis from Notre Dame, Jack Clark from Virginia Commonwealth, that's VCU, Otega Owe from Kentucky, Trayson Eaglestaff of North Dakota, and Ethan Almanza, who's playing for the Perth Wildcats after he also was in the G League Ignite. The dispersal of the G League Ignite talent didn't exactly churn out a ton of stars. Shout out to Jalen Green's underwhelming playoff, and Jonathan Kuminga's hostage situation in Golden State, as well as Scoot Henderson's somewhat slow developments. I don't think the G League Ignite is not a name that rings out in these parts. And Almanza, who was going to be a first-round pick, and maybe Pate also was going to be a first-round pick in theory. Neither of those dudes are likely to be there. So, of those guys, like I mentioned, this is a combination of undrafted free agents, players that just straight up will not be drafted in the NBA. second round hopefuls, guys who are going to be in that back half of the second round, like beyond pick 45, right? They're going to be 46 to 60 in the second round if they go fairly likely. And some guys who are going to go back to college, like Mackenzie Mbako was a former 5-star recruit who was committed to Duke and went to Indiana, but I believe he's transferred to Texas A&M. Like he's going to go back to college. Otega Owe from Kentucky, he might go back. He might go back to college. Devin Pryor, Texas, he's probably going to go. Like, it's just the way of the world and the NIL works is like, there's more money probably to be had chasing it at a major college institution than there is pursuing your dreams elsewhere. Certainly, like, going to Texas is a much better job than playing in the G League. Don't get it twisted. And like this part of the draft process before guys have to make their commitment to the draft or whatever, you get these players that stick in. Some guys stick in super long, right? They'll do 12, 15 workouts, 17 workouts, 17 workouts in 22 days across 17 different cities, like just everywhere trying to get in front of teams. But this is kind of what you do this time of year. If you're a fringy second rounder or someone who's probably not going to make the second round but hopes to like get a relationship with an NBA team, so they invite you to summer league when you're a little bit better at 25, and then you're a little bit better at 25. Oh, you're a little bit older for a rookie, but okay, we'd love to bring you in on a two-way deal. Now you got a two-way contract, foot in the door, $500,000, bang, you're closer to the NBA, right? Like this is chances for these guys to make early impressions and work out for teams. Chances for the Blazers to get players in their building that aren't maybe high level prospects, but are like, you're always, winning in the margins is incredibly important for every NBA team, and finding guys that you might be able to win in the margins with, who are kind of these fringy second round guys is important. As much data as you can possibly gather, and also you're doing agents favors, right? You're doing, I don't think that makes a ton of. I don't think it's like a big deal. It's part of the game. Like, I don't think it like the difference in like, signing a player, not signing a player is going to be like, did you work out his 18th most important client in May of 2025? But it does, like, it's part of the game is you do agents favors. You say, hey, I want my guy in the gym. I want him working out for folks. Yeah, great. We'll have him in the gym. We'd love to have him. Come on in. The names you need to know. I'm doing this based on ESPN's top 100 rankings, and also my main man, Rafael Barlow, released his top 70 draft board this week. Obviously, 100 more gentlemen that are going to get drafted, 70 more gentlemen that are going to get drafted, right? So like there are guys who are on this list who are like very specifically not going to be drafted into the league, but like the names you need to know that have worked out for the Blazers this week that appear on ESPN's top 100. Ben Henshaw is a guard who's he's about to turn 21, but he's playing in Australia. Dink Pate, I think that's probably the biggest name that you need to know. He's 57th on ESPN's top 100. He's 35th on Rafael Barlow's top 70. He's still just 19 after a couple pro seasons. I think he was supposed to probably be further along in his development than he has been, but at least a name to know. Lachlan Olbrich, who's playing for the Illawarra Hawks, shout out to LaMelo Ball. He's 82nd, a big guy, power forward center type, big guy, who's 82nd on ESPN's top 100. Otega Owe, who's, from what I understand, doing some research prior to this show, is likely to go back to Kentucky, but is kind of in between. He was 77th on ESPN's top 100. He's 64th on Raphael's top 70. That's outside the draft, right? Go back to college. You know what's a better job than being an undrafted free agent is playing basketball for the University of Kentucky. And Ethan Almanza is 80th on ESPN's top 100. Almanza is really fascinating, right? He was like going to be a first round pick. I saw him in person just once playing for the G League Ignite, and I was blown away by his lack of physicality. I was like, yeah, he's not ready, but he's been really good in some European, when he was like a young teenager, some really good in some high level European competition, but maybe he just, it's just like, it's not linear for these guys. He's not yet 20. He's super young still. So he's a name to keep an eye on. The other guys like Mbako was probably supposed to be a pro at this point, but just like isn't that level of player, etc. So those are the names you need to know. That's who's in the building. It's kind of underwhelming, huh? Like, this isn't that exciting. 2 things. Well, many things. 6 things. We'll start with one here, though. is really early in the process. Pre-lottery. These pre-lottery workouts very rarely publicized, right? Very rarely publicized. But the Blazers are showing you a little bit. Shout out to them. I'm pretty critical of them and their process and their and in general how the team is like provides information. But I think during the draft process, they're one of the more transparent teams in terms of who's coming in and all that. Like they give media an opportunity to see what the deal is and do interviews and all of those things. So respect to them for that. And fans benefit from that. I mean, that's my beef is because it's like, it's not that I want access to, so I can interview Dink Pate. It's like giving media access provides access to fans, which makes your product more exciting. But this is a little bit underwhelming. Why is that? Well, I think there's a bunch of reasons. Not only is it early, there's some other factors that are working against the Blazers. Let's talk about that in the second segment. Join me there, won't ya? First, though, let's talk about DoorDash. If you're watching NBA playoffs this season, it means that you can maybe see a big performance and earn some big rewards because DoorDash is bringing the heat with a slam dunk deal for Dash Pass members throughout the 2025 NBA playoffs. It's called They Swoosh, You Score. Anytime a player drops 50 or more points in a playoff game, Dash Pass members score a free 3-piece crispy tenders combo from Wingstop the very next day. Just place an order of $20 or more and use the code WINGSTOP50 at checkout, and that combo is yours. Crispy, delicious, and totally free. The offer is valid noon to midnight the day after the game, and terms apply. So, maybe you don't have a go-to move after an epic game, but you could have one. You could start ordering wings and reliving the highlights the very next day. Imagine being rewarded with free food just because someone else went off for 50 points. So here's the play. Sign up for Dash Pass to unlock this and more exclusive deals all season long. When any player scores 50 or more points in a playoff game, Dash Pass members can grab a free 3-piece crispy tenders combo from Wingstop the next day with a $20 or more order and the code WINGSTOP50. That's Dash Pass, your door to more savings, more flavor, and more ways to win. Terms apply. All right. It's a little bit underwhelming. It's underwhelming because it's early, but I think in general, the Blazers are going to have I don't know if challenge is the right word, but they're not going to have a great deal of ease getting dudes in the gym. Getting dudes in the gym this time of year for the position they might find themselves in could indeed be somewhat challenging for a variety of reasons. One, they got the 10th best odds in the lottery. If they're a top 4 team, like on Monday, I'm going to use non-conditional language here. When the Blazers get a top 4 pick on Monday, all this stuff I'm about to say goes out the window. But in the unlikely event that does not happen, we'll call it 84% chance, give or take, 83 and some change. That they're picking 10th or lower, right? They're picking 10th or lower. Though the most likely scenario is 10 and 11. I want to manifest, but I also am I'm beholden to actual math. But I'm only beholden to the math today. On Monday's program, the math is gone. We're only manifesting, only positivity heading into the draft lottery. So tune into that one. I will bring the true positivity for you, I promise. But 10th best lottery odds, likely to be picking 10th or 11th. When you're picking 10th or 11th, that works against you because guys have agents and agents don't want their dudes to slip. So they say my client is a top 7 prospect in this draft. He's working out for the top 7 teams. Everyone else can beat it. What are you going to do? You can't get that dude in the gym. You can still draft him. You might be able to go to a private workout held by his agency, but that's not you. You don't get to when the Blazers control the workout, right? They can see all the things they want to see. Okay, we know this dude is a really good, strong right-hand driver. We're going to set up some drills to see what he's like with his left hand. We know this dude can really shoot, but we're going to go through some movement shooting drills to see if just the standstill shooting and the movement shooting, you can control the environment, right? But in those agent workouts, it's you're seeing what you see, right? right? And you might get to see them up close, and professional scouts can see the little footwork stuff and all the little, all of the things that like make the art of scouting like a really young basketball player and being like, this is what he'll be in 5 years. Like you can see that a little bit if you're gifted, right? But you don't get to control the environment. And if you're 10th, you just aren't going to have the pick of the litter, right? And I offer like this, like consider the Scoot draft, right? The Blazers had the 3rd pick in the draft that year. That was 2023. In that draft, they got everybody but Wemby, everybody they wanted, right? Obviously, Victor Wembanyama was not going to come in. Like he wasn't going to be like, yeah, maybe I'll be there at 3, right? That wasn't an option. But Brandon Miller came in. Scoot Henderson came in. The Thompson twins, both of them, Amen and Asar, came in. Kind of hilariously, Cam Whitmore came in. But like they were very specific, very precise, very like they had individual, private, singular workouts because those high-level prospects don't want to work out in a group setting. They want to just like go through drills and not get beat up by someone. So they could get guys in the gym. They could get guys in the gym under their own terms, and they could do workouts. When they had a later pick, 7th with Donovan Clingan, it was a little bit harder to get guys in the gym, and they were doing private workouts. And from what my read on the situation, this isn't me necessarily reporting this, but from my read on it is like they did that Donovan Clingan private singular workout. Clingan worked out in a group workout as well. Both of those were not open to the public because Clingan's people didn't want the publicity, and the agents controlled the deal, right? The agents controlled the deal. So like, because you are beholden to the powerful movers and shakers that are representatives of these young basketball stars, you just might not be able to get people in the building if you have the 10th pick in the draft. That will be a bit of a challenge. It's not a deal breaker, right? The Blazers they've built their book over the last 40 years on these guys. You build your book from the time that they're 16 years old to the time that they're 19 years old, and you have all their scouting and all those things. And you got to trust the book, right? You got to trust your scouting. You got to trust the analytics. You got to trust the film breakdown. But there is some value in getting guys in the gym. You can still draft guys without getting them in the gym, but specifically during the Cronin era, players that they have brought in with first-round picks have come to the building. So pay attention to that. That's an important thing to pay attention to during these workouts. I'll probably reiterate that. The other thing that they have is young players at every position. The word I used in the first segment, I'm going to use it a bunch in the third segment, is redundancy. There is a fear with probably young prospects that the Blazers already have a young dude at every position. They've got a young point guard, Scoot Henderson. They've got a young shooting guard, Shaedon Sharpe. A young forward duo in Tamani Kamara and Denny Avdia. They got a young center in Donovan Clingan. Not to mention some slightly older veterans in Anthony Simons and DeAndre Ayton, plus a still on the roster and highly compensated forward and Jeremy Grant. Like, there isn't a bunch of playing time, right? There isn't like, oh, this team needs a point guard. If hey, my guy, I want my guy to go 6, but if he gets to 10, Portland has a spot for him, right? There isn't an obvious 30-minute role waiting for anyone, because the Blazers are, they have young players at each of those positions. They have a pretty sensible starting 5, right? At least theoretically, but theoretically is kind of what the draft is all about, right? Because so if you don't have space, theoretically, again, this isn't practically in the way basketball works, but in theory, if you don't have spots, it's going to prevent guys from coming in. So I think that is a challenge, right? I think that will be a challenge. There just isn't going to be interest from, say you have a client who's like 7 through 14, 7 through 17, 7 through 21, right? It's like, oh, he could rise as high as 7, but if he's in that like later lottery range, well, I don't love Portland because they don't want to say, where's he going to play? You want your guys to play. You want your guys to get on the court. That's the job of an agent, right? It's to like find a good spot for each of your clients. And I think that it won't prevent the Blazers from drafting players. That's not what I'm suggesting. It will merely prevent them from getting dudes in the gym for these workouts, right? Like that will be the challenge. It's like, can they get bodies in there because they don't have a super high pick and they don't have a clear path to playing time? Those are two challenges. The last one is they just don't have a second rounder. They can acquire one, but very unlikely to acquire one on draft night. So it's not like they have the 43rd pick in the draft. So they're going to get like a boatload of dudes who are, that second round range. The thing is, you can almost always get second rounders in your gym if you want to, because those are guys, fringe guys. They want opportunities. And what you say is, we are interested in making a move, and if we have this opportunity, we will. Or if you have these guys who are like, well, I'm not a top 40 pick. I'm going to be, 41 to 60. And if you're 41 to 60, you might be out of the draft. You might be a two-way guy. So any chance and any opportunity, your agent's going to help you get in the gym. So I don't think that the lack of second rounder is going to prevent guys coming in, but I think there is an interesting thing to track, which is, are the Blazers getting guys who are in that, depending on where they fall on Monday, if the unfortunate happens and the math works out, it's like, do they end up at, do they end up in that familiar spots at 10 and have a little bit of a challenge? And do they start working out guys who are like, oh, he's projected to go like 19 to 22? Then you might have an idea. Keep that in your, like, when we're going through draft workouts, we'll talk about like ranges and the consensus and all of those things, because maybe the Blazers decide to make a move out of the spot they're in, and it finds and maybe they're getting a bunch of early second rounders, and you're like, interesting. Maybe they're trying to move up and buy a second round pick, et cetera, et cetera. Like, I think who they work out could be in some ways telling about what their path forward is. Speaking of that path forward, there's a little bit of redundancy challenge here. Or another way to say it is, the Blazers have an opportunity to add a great level of depth in the draft. Which is it? Let's talk about it. Join me in that third segment. First, though, let's talk Fire TV. Did you know your Fire TV is also an Xbox? You could turn any TV into your gaming and entertainment hub with Fire TV Stick 4K devices. No console required. All you got to do is grab your paired controller, subscribe or sign in to the Xbox Game Pass Ultimate with EA Play included, and you're ready to play. You can dive into hundreds of premium titles, from EA Sports College Football to Call of Duty Black Ops 6 to Avowed, and as easily as you stream your favorite shows, you'll be able to play your games. It's gaming made simple, and it's all on your Fire TV. So, like, if you have a Fire TV, you know that you can stream all of your favorite streamers in 4K. So, like, Netflix, Prime Video, Disney Plus, Max, and more. But now you can also play high-quality Xbox games at the fraction of the cost. All you got to do is sign up for the Xbox Game Pass, and then without a console, you can just take your Fire TV stick and plug it in wherever you are. So, say you want another console in your house, but you don't want to shell out the money for it, or you're someone who wants to travel and game on the go. Well, a Fire TV Stick 4K device is more affordable and easier to take with you, which allows you to game, or all the little gamers in your family to game, wherever you plug in. Head to Amazon.com/Fire TV Locked On to get started. That's Amazon.com/Fire TV Locked On. Xbox Game Pass Ultimate subscription and compatible controller required. Available on select devices, including Fire TV Stick 4K, Fire TV Stick 4K Max, and Fire TV Cube. Still a pass first point guard. I'm still Mike Richmond. You're still listening to Locked On Blazers. It's draft workout season, and we're running through the logic of how the Blazers are going to do this. They're going to show us a little bit, right? Like, who comes in the gym is going to be meaningful, both because, like, it might be a challenge to do so, and they might tip us off what they're going to do. But regardless of what they do, there is this concern that adding players is a challenge, which I reject outright. But I will say that I've heard this from my friends, from some listeners to the program, is that, like, you'll pitch like, oh, the Blazers should add so-and-so. Let's just make up a name. Trey Murphy III. Okay, well, who's going to go to the bench if you add Trey Murphy III? That's a cool problem to have. like that's an extreme one, right? Because he's like a good young player. But like, sort of in general, it's like, oh, you're going to bench Tumani and Denny? Oh, what do you do with Shaden Sharp if you add that player? Okay, but Donovan Kling and DeAndre Ayton need minutes. How can you add another center? Yeah. I hear that. And this word redundancy, I want to give credit where credit is due. I had Rafael Barlow on the program earlier this week to talk NBA draft stuff. Raf's my guy. I really respect his opinion. He used this offhandedly. He said, yeah, whoever they draft, there's going to be a little redundancy there. Because, as I mentioned, the Blazers have youngsters. If you draft a point guard, redundant with Scoot. Shea, 2, Denny, DC, not to mention the other, young veterans, like Anthony Simon's not old, DeAndre Ayton's not old. Plus, like, if you're hopeful that Chris Murray pops or that the Blazers re-sign Jabari Walker or, et cetera, et cetera. Like, I don't think the Blazers are particularly deep. I don't think that was a challenge for them this year. I don't think I certainly don't think they suffered from having too many guys, but certainly they have some like Ryan Rupert didn't get very many minutes this year. He didn't play very much. He was kind of a victim of them trying to win basketball games. So there is a challenge when you add players that it is, that it's already a crowded roster. As I mentioned in the previous segment, that crowded roster is like maybe going to be one of the limiting factors for them to get like the juiciest draft workouts, and they may have to, that this might be a somewhat of a challenge for them. Not a limiting factor on draft night. You get to pick whoever you want, but like a limiting factor in the lead up to the draft, which is your sort of final bells and whistles, final ribbons on your data that you've collected over the years, and can be helpful for getting guys in your gym, getting guys in your building to sort of get to know them as humans a little bit before you make your final call and see them up close and see whether they confirm your priors or whatever. But I guess in draft season, you're not trying to have them confirm your priors. But I want to mention this. Well, I do think that is somewhat challenging to say like, okay, well, they should draft, VJ Edgecombe. Where does he play? Does he come off the bench? Does he start over Shaedon Sharpe? Does he just do you play 2 guards and let Denny run points? Like, that is a problem that a team like the Blazers has to face. That's a great problem to have. The best case scenario for him is that you have too many good young players. And you have to, maybe have hard conversations with dudes about playing time. But like a lot of good young players either is helpful in a variety of ways. One, that's the point of a basketball team, is to have a bunch of good young players. Two, if you have a bunch of good young players, perhaps a trade is on the horizon. Say, hey, we've got too many guys. Can we turn 3 good young players into 1 very good player? Like the consolidation world of just like the roster churn, right? But I would caution with the concern about redundancy a little bit, because while I do agree that the Blazers have young players at every position that you want to have playing time for, you feel like even some of the young veterans like Ayton and Simons are somewhat in the way and blocking guys from getting like maximum minutes, although I think to some extent it's not that big of a deal, but it's fine. I think that's both real and not real, but I think there is a worry sometimes where you say, I want to see what this guy has, which means that like it is like it ipso facto means you don't want to see another young player. That really reeks to me a little bit of we already had Clyde. Of course you don't want to draft a young shooting guard from North Carolina. We already have a star shooting guard. I would caution against that. I would caution against putting any of the Blazers players in stone, right? I think Denny Avdia was the Blazers' best player last year. If there's a really good forward, I think Toumani Camara and Denny, let me say that again. I think Denny was the Blazers' best player. I think Toumani was the Blazers' second best player. I think their best 2 players last season were 2 forwards who are not yet 26. I believe Toumani Camara just turned 25. He's about 6 months older than Denny. I think that's factually true. And if there's another really good young forward on the board when the Blazers are drafting, you do it and you don't look back. You got to draft your best player available. You cannot worry about redundancy. The number one thing you want to do is have a ton of good basketball players and then figure out the roster later. The Blazers are not at a stage where they can worry about redundancy, in my opinion. I understand why it is a concern, but for me, I would be much more concerned about building high-quality NBA depth to be consistently competitive at a high level, not just like pretty good for 41 games the back half of the season. Once you get to a point where you are consistently good, you can worry about redundancy and who's really productive and who's in the way and who must play and all of those things. Until then, you just draft the best player. You say, we will figure it out. We're going to add the best player, understanding that finding playing time for them is part of the challenge. Understanding, and you could port the same sort of logic over to the trade stuff. Obviously, you don't want to just like load up on one position, but You cannot let the Blazers are not talented enough currently to let the players on the roster dictate decisions should very good players be available. It doesn't mean you do stupid stuff, but you can't, to me, worrying about redundancy is a problem when you are very good and not when you are hopeful of being pretty good. And the Blazers currently are hopeful of being pretty good. So build your depth. And then if you find out that it's a little bit redundant depth, solve it down the line. But I wouldn't worry about what position or who fits where and all those things. Draft the best player available, acquire good players, figure it out on the backside because this team is still further enough away that the number one thing they need to do is add talent and not freak out about where exactly the talent fits into the puzzle. Although where it fits into the puzzle is obviously a huge part of this whole thing, which is kind of why one podcaster has done some hand-wringing about Anthony Simons and DeAndre Ayton and Jeremy Grant's future over the last, say, 300 episodes of this program. It's a balance over when you decide these things matter, but I think in draft season they matter a lot less during trades than during trade season. Obviously, draft season and trade season can coexist together. That is going to do it for this week of shows. 5 of them. Wherever you get podcasts, also on YouTube. They're waiting in your feeds wherever you listen to this one. If you missed any this week, go back and listen to them, and then come back for 5 more next week. Monday, positivity, manifestation, and proof that the Blazers will win the lottery or something. I'm going to bring some positive energy, though, because you'll need it. You're listening to Monday's program, heading into Monday evening's draft lottery. We're going to bring good vibes to the program, talk a little bit about Blazers draft stuff. Tuesday, we'll talk about where the Blazers land, and we'll run through all of the important mock drafts that immediately drop following the lottery. That'll be a lot of fun because we'll know where the Blazers pick. Draft shows early next week. We'll get back to some player reviews next week. I'm trying to nail down an interview as well. So what we do, 5 days a week, wherever you get podcasts, also on YouTube. Tell your friends about the program. I appreciate you listening. I'll talk to you soon.